I wanted to take a minute to provide some answers to some questions that have been coming our way in regards to the proposed federal antitrust lawsuit settlement. Hi, I'm Derek Buckspan from RE/MAX Shoreline, and if you've been watching the headlines in the real estate industry, you may have some questions about how this might impact you if you're considering buying or selling in the near future. The important thing to realize first, at this point in time, it's a proposed settlement. So much of what I'm about to mention is subject to change as it goes through the legal process and ultimately needs to be approved by a judge. If you've been reading the headlines and watching the news, the headlines are confusing in this settlement as it relates to real estate as it's practiced in Maine and New Hampshire. The first point that's confusing is the settlement requires buyer agents have a written agreement. Buyer agents in Maine and New Hampshire have been required by state law to have written agreements for many years. It's part of our education process, and it's an integral part of documenting that fiduciary duty that buyer agents have to their clients and has for many years. Our buyer agent agreements have a section on compensation, and buyers have good clarity on how their agents are to be paid based on that agreement. So this is confusing when you look at it from the national headline, but what I was surprised to learn is that approximately 60% of the U.S. does not have required buyer agency by state statute. Another aspect of the settlement is removal of buyer cooperation on compensation from the multiple listing service. The multiple listing service is the database that provides information about properties from address to photos to number of bedrooms, but also traditionally has been a contractual obligation between listing agency and buyer agency over compensation for buyer services. That is to be removed from the multiple listing service. There are already some other mechanical components that are being discussed about how that will function after that's not in the multiple listing service. I don't see that leaving the marketplaces in Maine and New Hampshire, and mainly because if I think about the sales process from the seller's perspective, what is best for a seller? What is best for a seller and what's a big part of our market currently is competition over property. When a seller has competition for their house, they potentially could have that good scenario of reviewing multiple offers. And what does a seller want? A seller doesn't want to limit anybody who may have interest in the property because multiple offers tends to drive up price and terms for the seller. So while we will have to deal with some mechanical changes likely in the industry, I don't see this going out of our marketplace because that's what's best for the seller. And it is also best for buyers to have representation of their interest in the transaction and a structure in the marketplace for that to happen. So thanks for taking a minute to watch. Your RE/MAX Shoreline agent is a resource for you as all of this pertains to your specific needs. We look forward to helping you make your real estate dreams a reality.